is Dr. Ben Pearl with FitFootU, and today we've got a real corker. We've got Michael Wardian. He's a local Arlingtonian like myself, very accomplished. My mind is boggled just as we were just doing the pre sort of interview, unpacking some of the feats that you've done. You've got the Last Man Standing, which you'll explain. I just found out today, bumping into Jay Wynn, that you held at one point the fastest indoor marathon time, over right local at TJ Thomas Jefferson Middle School here in Arlington on a 200-meter track.
That's true.
And you've also accomplished running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, which logistically I will have to hear how you did it. Maybe we'll start with that and welcome.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey I've been on. I've been fortunate enough to get to do a lot of different events all over the world. One of the ones that people find somewhat interesting, and I know when I first heard of it, it kind of blew my mind. I didn't understand how you could do 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And um, when someone brought it up to me, I was actually finishing a race at the North Pole. I just won the North Pole Marathon, and a friend of mine named Richard Donovan said he had this idea to do 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And I said, that sounds awesome. And that was back in 2014. And it took me until 2017 to figure out how to pay for it. So that was one of the first hurdles to get over. Was the price tag for doing it was about $50,000. So I had to figure out how you're going to cover those kind of expenses, and then to just know that if you had the fitness to be able to run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, which being a marathon and ultra marathon runner, I was pretty confident in my ability to recover between the efforts, and then be able to execute on the day. And so once I got to I've actually done the 7 marathon, 7 days on 7 continents twice. It's called the World Marathon Challenge. I won it in 2017 and also in 2019, establishing the still standing fastest time for it, an average of 2 hours, 46 minutes for all 7 of the marathons. So including running at the point until last year, October of last year, I had the fastest time ever run in Antarctica. It was just bested. I ran 2 hours, 54 minutes in Antarctica in 2017, and it was just broken by someone only running 1 marathon in 2023 by about a minute. So had a really good time accomplishing that and challenging myself. And then also getting a chance to kind of see the world and explore what I was capable of.
What was the favorite marathon you did of those 7?
Definitely for me, Antarctica. Like, that was my first time in 2017 going to Antarctica. It was my 7th continent. It's actually pretty amazing. We just, as a family, visited Antarctica over the Christmas holiday and New Year of this past 2023 and 2024. So my family has kind of joined me on the journey around the world and been to all 7 continents now. But for me, the chance to go and visit Antarctica was kind of a dream come true. And then also running in a place where it's so pristine and remote. And the place where we were running is Union Glacier. It's just kind of ringed by mountains, and you kind of land on like a 5 kilometer long runway that's just ice. So it's a unique place, and just that you're somewhere special when you're there. And yeah, for me it was one of those kind of dream come true scenarios, and and to be able to win there and continue to win the other 6 races as we moved around the world made it even more special.
So you won them all?
I did. I won them all, and I won them all in 2017 and again in 2019.
Wow. temperature changes, temperature challenges during those events?
Yeah,
What's
that's definitely one of the biggest challenges with completing the World Marathon challenges. One day when we were in Antarctica, it was negative 30 degrees, and then the next day it was 80 degrees in Cape Town, so or 90. So, it's a big fluctuation in what your body is asked to do and how it's asked to perform, and then also there's no set schedule. So you could be running the marathon at 1 o'clock in the morning. You could be running at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's all based on when you land and when you get to the venue for the event. So you have to be prepared to run any time of day or night. And then, time zones don't really matter anymore. You're just kind of a citizen of the world moving around with 50 of your closest friends and, yeah, exploring the world under those circumstances and dealing with things as they arise.
Well, you must have an incredible constitution. What are some of the things that you attribute to being able to accomplish this, like with your sleep schedule, with your nutrition? We haven't even gotten to injuries yet, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm never really stressed about sleep. So I think for a lot of people, that's one of the biggest hurdles is like, are they going to be able to get 8 hours? I think if I can get a couple hours, like 3 or 4 hours, I'm usually good to go. And it doesn't really have to be continuous or so I think that's one of my superpowers is the ability to go without sleep or minimal sleep. And as far as nutrition, I'm a vegetarian um, at the moment, almost vegan. I'd say I eat only honey is the only animal product. When I was competing in these events, I was eating eggs. So that's kind of the only difference between now and then. And for me, it was really about fueling, just being careful with what you're putting in your body, especially as you're moving around the world and you're with people that are also pushing themselves to extreme. So, you just have to be careful not to get a stomach flu or pick up something in transit as you're traveling, and then try to get in as good and as quickly as you can. Stuff that you like to eat. I brought a lot of my own food with me. I eat a lot of oatmeal. I eat a lot of fruit. I had a lot of bars and then tried to stay hydrated. And then on the plane, tried to stay loose and limber. So a lot of stretching if I could. And then, just kicking your feet back and then light movement. I think for me, just after I'd finished the race, I'd try to do some kind of movement. And I think that really helped to keep me fresh and able to execute on the next day.
What about some of the minor injuries and or blisters, things associated with the cold in Antarctica that you had to combat?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really about knowing how to race in the conditions where you are. In Antarctica, you kind of run until you get to the point where you start to sweat, and then you kind of have to slow down, or else you get hypothermic and can get um, exposure with frostbite. So just being careful and mindful of pushing up until the point where you start to sweat profusely, and then slow it, but kind of back it down. And then making sure that you're continuing to fuel as much as you can in those conditions. And sometimes it can be hard if you're wearing like a face covering or something like that. So just, and then you also have to make sure you keep like I use goo, like keep the goos like close to your body so they don't freeze. If you keep them too far away from your body, they'll freeze, or like your hydration. So yeah, so just being kind of cognizant of what you're doing. And then as far as blisters, I just try to avoid blisters. I use like Injinji toe socks. Those have worked really well for me to avoid blistering. If I do blister, then I'll use like KT tape or something on my toes or on the exposed part of my skin. Um, that's a little bit irritated. And then yeah, it's mostly about prevention rather than dealing with it. So as far as chafing, I use like squirrel's nut butter, which is kind of a lubricant. So I'll put that kind of under my arms, places where there could be hot spots, like kind of in your nether region, like making sure that you're really being mindful. And then A lot of times it's just, stopping. So stopping and addressing stuff before it becomes an issue, because you're not just doing one race where, okay, if you get a blister the next day, you're just kind of hobbling around with a blister, but you have to kind of repeat and be at the top of your game day after day after day. And to do that, sometimes it means slowing down one day to be able to execute the next day and to be able to push yourself where you want to go. So if that means I have to take 5 seconds to, pull a pebble out of my shoe, rather than let that become an abrasion that causes discomfort. I'd rather spend those 2 seconds or half minute or whatever early on than have to deal with the consequences of not addressing it.
Did you run with a medium or heavier grade in Gingies when you were doing your cold climate runs?
I did, yeah. So they have
They have like
a line.
a heavier wool.
Yeah, they have a liner, and then they have a wool kind of hiking boot that'll go over it. So I'd use something like that, or even just the thicker trail model rather than one of the thinner liners. But then I would rotate that. So like the next day, I might go like a thinner, kind of more uh, straight up cotton rather than the wool or the merino. Yeah, it's just being kind of knowledgeable about where you are and what you're asking your equipment to do.
Now, for those of us that have been less Ironman than you in terms of having just various things, knee irritation, I'm thinking after marathon 3, even you might be running through a left knee that's aching. Anything that came up like that, just sort of transient things, and or
Uh, I
or
mean,
not.
not for me on this case. Like, it was more like the more I went, the stronger I got, which is a nice feeling. It was more about just kind of not going too not overdoing it too soon, like knowing that you have another race the next day, but also kind of pushing yourself to your maximum and just kind of trusting in your ability to recover. So, I always wanted to kind of see what I was capable of on the day and be mindful that there was more to come, but also really push and and if that meant that I put myself in a little bit of a hole for the next day, then I'd try to dig myself out of it. And I feel like a lot of times if you do keep moving afterwards, like you kind of flush through everything that was built up on the one race, and then you really start the clock until you're going to race again. So it's really about kind of pushing yourself as much as you can, and then getting in some good calories and food and recovery so that you can be ready to do it the next day.
Now let's go from the prolific and epic to kind of the repetitious. Tell us a little bit about the record you achieved with the indoor run. How did that come about, and has anybody eclipsed that since on that 200 meter?
Yeah, for the 200-meter indoor track, I actually was reading an article about a record from, I think it was 1934. A guy, I don't know if you followed it, but back in the day, there was races at Madison Square Garden. There were these
Yeah, Madison.
yeah, they had ultra pedestrian type races where people would go and run for 1 day, 2 days, 6 days, do a marathon, and there would be people gambling on them. It seemed really like a pretty cool thing, like back in the 30s and 40s. And then they used to have these like Bunyan derbies where they would do races across the country, and I think it was like even $50,000 to win then, which would be quite a bit of money now. So there was an article about somebody that set the record for a marathon on a 200-meter track, and I was surprised. I saw I can't remember what the time was. It was like 240 or 250, and I was like, oh, I can probably do that. And then I set up the race, and we named it after our kids, the Grant and Pierce Indoor Marathon, and did it at TJ because it was really close to where I live. It's about a mile and a half from where I live, um, and yeah, I executed. It was 200-meter tracks. I was going around the track every 45 to 50 seconds, and was able to break the world record. And then, um, that made me happy. It's one of those things where you think about doing it, you put it in place, and then you're able to make it happen.
What year was
There's
that
nothing.
roughly?
I can't remember. I think 2011, maybe 2012. And then since then, I held the record for a number of years. And then since then, the Armory in New York put a prize on it. And so, like, it's been awesome to see the time come down. At first, somebody ran, I think, 2:23 and then 2:18. And I actually went and ran it at the Armory. And it was cool because the Armory is a little different than TJ in that the Armory is banked. So it was my first time running on a bank track. And that was really neat. And I think I ran 2:25 or 2:26 or maybe even 2:27. And I remember, like, the guy that ran 2:18 passed me like 15 times. And I felt like, oh man, I'm getting crushed. And it was like only a difference of, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, right? But when you're getting past that many times, you like feel like you're just getting your butt kicked, which, I mean, you are, but I mean, not really.
All relative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been cool to see the time really come down. I think it might even be like 2:15 or 2:16 now that someone's done for an indoor track. And then I also set the record for 50K on the treadmill, and that's also come way down from when I broke. I was the first person to break like 3 hours on the 50K for a treadmill, and now it's come down to like a crazy like 2:42 or 2:43 during the pandemic. Like, lots of people were doing treadmill world records. So that's been great. It's been cool to be on kind of the front end of that and see where it's gone. Records are a snapshot of a particular time, and it's cool to see people find interest in them and then improve on them.
It looks like you got the right perspective on records. I like that you're you enjoy the process of what you were able to achieve, but enjoy also almost from a spectator standpoint of seeing how things are progressing. That's cool.
100%. Yeah. No, it's awesome. I mean, that's what I love about people that do clever stuff. Like, I love. I don't know if you follow like fastest known times, but those are just great. You can go out and run a trail that maybe never had a race on it before and establish a time, and then someone else can see that and improve on that. I used to have all the records on all the bike trails around town, like the WO&D trail, the C&O Canal, the trail, that the Mount Vernon trail, and the Arlington Loop, and then people saw that and have since improved on those. So it's nice to to see that. And then if I see somebody do something cool, then I might take that on. Like, I still have the record for the running the entire C&O Canal, and I saw that there was a race that they used to do in like the 70s, and I ended up breaking that guy's record by it was like 36 hours for 300K or like 184 miles, and I ended up breaking his record by like 12 minutes. So it's one of those things where people do something cool, and you see it and you think, well, maybe I could do that too. And hopefully someone sees what I've done and says like, oh, maybe I can give that a crack and do even better.
What sort of running background do you have? Share with our viewers what your formal or informal running background was.
Yeah, so I actually didn't really have a running background. I grew up playing lacrosse. Yeah, so I played lacrosse through I started in middle school and played at Oakton High School in Fairfax County. Went away and played at Michigan State University. The time I went there, they were Division I. I played like three or so years there, and stopped playing my senior year to basically go on spring break because I wanted to see what that was like, and then picked up running to stay fit. So and quickly decided I was going to run a marathon, and from there have run marathons on all 7 continents and qualified for Olympic trials and been on Team USA for 50K and 100K world championships, and have gotten to become a professional athlete. So I feel like I still consider myself a lacrosse player, but I've actually had way more success as a runner.
That's cool.
And endurance athlete. Yeah.
So you've got to share with us some anecdotes. We were talking before if anything funny happened along the way, and it could be on your 7 marathon quest or your run across the United States. And where did you start and end in that? And then give us some of your anecdotes.
Yeah, I'd say my some of the highlights of my career were qualifying for the Olympic trials, running across the U.S. That was a lifelong dream that occurred. I started May 1st of 2022 in San Francisco City Hall. San Francisco was special to me. I thought there's no cooler place to kind of start your run than running across the Golden Gate Bridge. Like it's something that I'll always remember. I've won the San Francisco Marathon in the past, so I kind of had ties to the city. I just think it's like one of the coolest cities in the world. So I, I decided to start there. I looked at starting in LA also, or, there's all different places you can start, but San Francisco had a lot of meaning to me. And I also wanted to run on Route 50. And so from San Francisco, Route 50 starts in Sacramento, and it's not that hard to get from San Francisco to Sacramento. So I picked up Route 50 in Sacramento and stayed on Route 50 basically all the way until the Bay Bridge. So I ran across America's loneliest highway in Nevada. I think that was pretty unique. I have a funny story where it was snowing on me in Nevada in the middle of kind of towards the end of May, and I was wearing shorts because I'd already run. I was averaging 52 miles a day, so I was within. I'd already run 40 miles that day, and there was kind of like a sideways blizzard, and a lady came up and yelled at me for being underdressed. Mm-hmm. I had people throw in Ohio. We had somebody throw like a hamburger at us, which was like not a great story. I had a lady in the middle of Kansas. It was unbelievably hot, and she saw me struggling, and I was walking because a car had just run me off the road, and I'd pulled my hamstring, and she saw me, and it was like 95 degrees, and I had to walk the last like 3.5, 4 hours to cover, I think, like, I don't know, 12 miles or something. And this lady pulled up, and she was driving the other direction. I was walking eastbound. She was coming westbound, and she saw me walking and stopped her car and kind of like came back and was like, "Hey, you need a ride?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm just I'm trying to run across the country." And she's like, "Okay, you want a water or anything?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm going to see my support team up here in a little bit." And I go like, I don't know, 5 more minutes, and all of a sudden she like drives back. She drives off, and then she comes back, and she's like, "Come on, baby, you can get in the car. I won't tell anyone." And I was just like, "No, that's not how it works." But thank you. So anyhow, like I saw a lot of humanity on the course of running across the country. I got to see a lot of part of the world I've never seen before. I got to see a lot of roadkill. I got to see a lot of interesting landscape. I got to cross the Continental Divide. I think it was one of the most incredible things I've ever done, and it was one of those things where I felt like I was really meant to do it, and I'm looking forward to having that same experience this year. I'm in August. I'm going to run the entire Appalachian Trail and try to set the record southbound coming from Maine to Georgia, and I'm really looking forward to getting back into that place where you get, when you've been doing something and it becomes all you do and who you are. So, I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, Michael, you truly have traveled the road less traveled. Just amazing experiences. I can only imagine just from your stories. Have you ever crossed paths? I know you like to run in Hoka's, and they've been one of your sponsors. I assume on covering some of the costs for some of the vignettes you shared. Um, do you know Tommy Nohilly? He was a Hoka ambassador. He was a steeplechase guy
No, I don't know him.
from upstate New York. He also ran with Matt Centro at Senior.
Oh
But
wow, okay.
there was a now defunct, I don't know if it's resumed, there was a run camp at for high schoolers at SUNY New Paltz, and that's how I met Tommy. And
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think there's yeah, I mean, I know Matt Centrowitz Sr. And his son, but like incredible athletes, and I'm sure that Tommy's in that same ilk. Like he's, yeah, there's so many good runners. Like you see it all over the world and all over the country, and it's great to see that he's been able to find support with Hoka in the past, and I hope he's having a good career.
tell me a little bit about how you operate with the shoes. You normally is the shoe, do you let it sort of decompress and since you just ran a marathon with it, and then try one of your other shoes, or will you wear that shoe again for like a sequenced event?
It really depends. It depends what my limitations are. Like if I'm doing a race like Marathon des Sables, where you're carrying everything you're going to be using for the entire week, and you don't have the option to rotate shoes, then yeah, I'm wearing the same shoe. If I have the option to rotate shoes, then I'll try to rotate shoes, right? So even when I was running across the country, I thought I was going to use a lot more shoes than I did. I ended up using about 13 pairs of shoes, but I would basically run a marathon in the Mach 5s in the morning, and then switch to the Bondi in the afternoon. So kind of like a lighter weight shoe in the morning, and then a heavier shoe in the afternoon. And I would just do that repeatedly, day after day after day. And I really thought I was going to need to switch out my shoes more, but I ended up getting probably about 1,000 miles out of each shoe, and um, they were worn down pretty solidly. But I wasn't running super fast, so I think it also depends on how fast you're running, what kind of force you're putting on the shoe, and what you're asking it to do. I was basically kind of shuffling across the country, like
Yeah.
taking 12 hours to go 50 some miles. Whereas, if I was running a marathon on the road, and you're just crushing the insole, or and then it depends, like if I was using carbon or not, right? So like now there's carbon shoes, and I feel like those have a little more durability than some super cushion shoes. So it really depends what shoe I'm
A little
using and what the
ergonomic too,
environment.
a little energy return, little spring.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's also like what kind of terrain you're on. Are you on roads or trails? Am I
Yeah.
running mountains? Do I need a shoe for the next day that's gonna need to take me through water crossings, and I'm running on the edge of somewhere where I can fall, and I want the kind of best grip I can get.
Michael, what would you share for people that are aspire to do anything close to what you do with sequenced marathons, endurance events, on remaining injury free? Do you weight train? What are some of the things that you might share with runners, viewers that aspire to do anything approaching uh, something like what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a huge thing that I've incorporated. I do strength training with a personal trainer, a guy named Jesse Fuller here in the DC area twice a week. And then I was working out CrossFit type style with a friend of mine, Tom Mehrhofer, 3 times a week. Most actually 4 times a week, pretty much, because I would do it on the weekend if I'm in town. So I guess that's 6 days a week of weight training, and on top of like running or cycling or cross training or whatever I'm doing. Um, and for me, it's a priority. I wasn't so huge on that earlier in my career, like when I was younger, but I'm going to be 50, turning 50 this year, so in April, and I've noticed a huge impact on my running just with being stronger. A lot of times that's just like being able to carry the sack or maintaining proper form, especially later in the event, or even just having that grit and determination that I think comes with putting yourself um, in hard circumstances, like lifting weights is very I like it in the fact that it's very much like running. It's either you do the work or you don't, and if you don't do the work, you don't get the results. So if you're putting the time and energy into getting stronger, you're going to see gains. Um, and I was worried a lot when I was younger about getting too big from lifting. And I think if you're running a fair amount of miles or cycling or whatever you're doing, then I don't think you have to be too worried about putting on bulk.
Yeah. So you're off to New Zealand next. What do you have cooking there?
So I'm doing my first bike packing race. It's called the Tour de Wapanami. I'm probably not saying that right. It's basically a race across the South Island of New Zealand. It's a bike packing race. So for me, that's something that I've not had a lot of experience with, and so it's going to be a big challenge. The distance is a little over 1,100. I think it's 1,133 kilometers, about 830 miles. And then it's going to have an elevation gain and loss of, I think, a little bit over 100,000 feet. So it's going to be a lot of climbing, a lot of logistics. I'm really worried about being in the saddle 18 hours a day. So like, how do I manage that? I'm worried that my feet are going to hold up, my whole body's going to hold up. Also, like you're responsible for everything. They just give you like a GPS track, and then you have to figure it out. So you have to plan your logistics. You have to, make sure you have everything you need. And luckily, I'm doing it with my friend Michael Huga, and he's going to be there with me. So we're going to hopefully have a really fun adventure together and get to the finish line. And you got to kind of from the top of the South Island of New Zealand all the way down to the bottom, which I think is called Slope Point, maybe. So yeah, it's going to be neat. We'll get to be in the land of Lord of the Rings, kind of going up and down those mountains that you see in those kind of epic scenes of Lord of the Rings. So I'm looking forward to exploring New Zealand and kind of doing something different that I've not done before. So yeah, right now behind me, I've got all kinds of gear that I'm going through, trying to figure out, how to charge electronics, how to
Yeah.
make sure I have enough food, make sure that I bring the right gloves and hats and jackets, and then make it all fit in like a tiny little pack. So
Yeah. And I'm mesmerized just hearing not only the logistics which you just mentioned, but just the span and variety of challenges that you've taken on. You don't stick to the same thing. That's awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for spending time with me tonight to share many of your previous journeys and your upcoming journey. Where can people, if they want to follow what you're doing, where can they tap in?
yeah, I mean, I think I'm always available on social media. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I have a website, MikeWardian.com. That's WARD like dog, IAN like Nancy. Yeah, so they can hit me up there. I control all those accounts myself, so I'm the one answering the emails and DMs and all that kind of stuff. So if they want to check me out on social media, that'd be great. And yeah, I hope I hear from some people, and I hope people find what I'm doing interesting. And I'm a local guy, so they can also see me running around town if they're in the Arlington, DC metro area.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I look forward to meeting you. We haven't met in person yet, but I'm sure we will.
Cool.
Maybe when you get back from New Zealand, we'll figure out some kind of vegetarian meetup spot. You can share a couple of your stories. I'd love to hear some of them, some more of them.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. Let me know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael, and good luck with everything. And keep your head up on that bike. I'm sure you'll do well.
All right, thanks, man.
All right. I'm gonna end.